first fat raindrop hit the windshield like a flung pebble, startling me out of the quiet reverie I'd fallen into. Then another. And another. Within seconds, the world outside the car windows dissolved into a gray, watery smear. The rhythmic thwump-thwump-thwump of the wipers kicked in, a frantic counterpoint to the low hum of the engine and the soft folk music playing on the radio that neither of us had really been listening to. "Whoa," Alex murmured, his hands tightening slightly on the steering wheel. His profile, usually so familiar, looked etched with concentration in the dashboard's dim glow. That came out of nowhere. The headlights of oncoming traffic were just blurred halos, ghosts swimming through the downpour. The cozy familiarity of driving home from Sarah's birthday dinner, the laughter, the warmth of shared cake, evaporated, replaced by a sense of being adrift in a tiny, fragile metal boat on a raging sea. We were on the old county road, a stretch usually scenic with rolling hills, but now just a ribbon of slick asphalt disappearing into gray oblivion. Houses were scarce out here, long driveways hidden behind walls of rain-lushed trees. The tension in the car, which had been a subtle undercurrent since he'd picked me up, a tension born of things unsaid, of a recent, stupid argument that still felt raw, tightened another notch, wound tight by the sudden fury of the storm. "Alex," I said, my voice sounding smaller than I intended against the drumming rain. Maybe we should pull over? This is getting impossible." Visibility was down to mere feet. The car shuddered slightly as a gust of wind buffeted it. He didn't answer immediately, just leaned forward, squinting through the water-streaked glass. His jaw was set. Then, with a decisive nod, he flicked the indicator, though who could possibly see it was a mystery. "Yeah. Good call. There's that old gravel turnout just up ahead, near the old oak. Remember?" I did. A wide spot carved out years ago, offering a view of the valley on clear days. Now, it would just be shelter. Perfect, I breathed, relief mixing with a strange, heightened awareness of his proximity, the warmth radiating from him in the suddenly chilly car. He navigated carefully, the tires crunching onto the loose gravel, the sound swallowed by the rain's roar. He eased the car to a stop far enough from the road, switched off the engine, and killed the headlights. Darkness, thick and velvety, folded around us, broken only by the faint, greenish glow of the dashboard lights and the relentless, silver streaks cascading down the windows. The sudden silence, relative only to the engine noise, made the storm outside seem even louder, more intimate. It was like being sealed inside a cave, the rain our pounding heartbeat. "Wow," Alex exhaled, running a hand through his hair, a gesture I knew meant he was processing, grounding himself. He turned slightly in his seat to face me. The dim light caught the worry lines around his eyes, the familiar curve of his lips that felt like home. That escalated quickly. It really did, I agreed, wrapping my arms around myself, suddenly conscious of the slight chill seeping into the car despite the lingering warmth. The silence stretched, filled only by the storm and the unspoken weight between us. The argument from 2 days ago, about something trivial, forgotten now in its specifics but sharp in its residue, hung in the air like static. He looked at me, really looked at me, his gaze searching mine in the gloom. "Clara," he started, his voice low, roughened by the tension and the storm. "About the other day. I've been such an idiot." The directness, the vulnerability in his voice, pierced through my own carefully maintained reserve. The hurt I'd been nursing, the little barbed wire fence I'd erected around my feelings, began to unravel. "Me too," I whispered, the words catching slightly in my throat. "I overreacted. I said things I didn't mean." He shook his head, a small, sad movement. "No, you were right to be upset. I was insensitive. I get caught up in my own head sometimes, my own worries, and I forget." He trailed off, reaching out slowly, hesitantly, across the console separating us. His fingertips brushed the back of my hand where it rested on my knee. A jolt, warm and electric, shot up my arm. I forget how much you mean to me. How lucky I am. His touch was tentative, a question. My breath hitched. The anger, the frustration, the petty hurt dissolved under the sheer force of that simple contact and the raw sincerity in his words. The storm outside mirrored the one finally calming inside me. I turned my hand under his, lacing my fingers through his larger, warmer ones. The connection was immediate, grounding. We both got caught up, I said softly, squeezing his hand. It happens. But I hate fighting with you, Alex. I hate this distance. The admission hung between us, fragile and precious. He lifted our joined hands, pressing my knuckles gently against his lips. It wasn't a kiss, exactly, more a tender press, a silent vow. The sensation sent a wave of warmth through me, starting at my hand and flooding my chest. His eyes held mine, reflecting the faint dashboard glow, filled with a mixture of remorse, affection, and something deeper, something that made my pulse skip. I hate it more, he murmured against my skin, his breath warm. He lowered our hands but didn't let go. Instead, he shifted his body as much as the confined space allowed, turning more fully towards me. The console was an awkward barrier, a reminder of the car's limitations, but also an invitation to bridge the gap. Come here, he breathed, his voice a soft rumble barely audible over the rain. He released my hand only to reach for the lever on the side of my seat. With a quiet whir, the seat back reclined slightly. Then, with infinite care, he undid his own seatbelt and leaned over the console. There was no awkwardness, only a profound sense of rightness as his arms encircled me. It wasn't a dramatic pull, it was a gentle gathering, a drawing in. He guided me towards him, maneuvering carefully in the cramped space, until my head found the hollow of his shoulder, my body angled awkwardly but comfortably half across the console, nestled against his side. His arms wrapped around me, strong and secure, pulling me close. One hand rested warmly on my waist, the other cradled the back of my head, his fingers tangling softly in my hair. I buried my face in the soft cotton of his shirt, breathing in the familiar scent of him, clean laundry, faint traces of his citrusy cologne, and the unique, comforting warmth that was simply Alex. The tension I hadn't even fully realized I was carrying seeped out of me, leaving a profound, almost dizzying sense of relief and belonging. "Oh, Clara," he sighed, the sound of vibration against my temple. He held me tighter, his cheek resting against the top of my head. "I missed this. Missed you. Just holding you." "Me too," I murmured, my voice muffled against his chest. I snuggled closer, my arm wrapping around his torso, feeling the solid warmth of him beneath his shirt. The rain hammered its relentless rhythm on the roof, a cocoon of sound that only intensified the feeling of intimacy, of being utterly separate from the world. Here, in this dimly lit sanctuary, with the storm raging outside, the only things that existed were the warmth of his embrace, the steady beat of his heart under my ear, and the profound sense of peace settling over us. The argument felt distant, insignificant against the sheer, overwhelming reality of us. We stayed like that for long, quiet minutes, simply breathing each other in, relearning the contours of closeness. His hand moved slowly, soothingly, up and down my back, tracing gentle circles over my sweater. Every touch was a reassurance, a silent apology, a reaffirmation. My own hand rested on his chest, feeling the rise and fall of his breath. The awkward angle faded away, replaced by a deep, bone-melting comfort. The storm outside wasn't frightening anymore, it was a backdrop, a symphony underscoring our reunion. Slowly, he shifted, just enough to tilt his head down. I felt his gaze before I saw it. I lifted my face from his shoulder, our eyes meeting in the dimness. His expression was tender, open, filled with a soft intensity that made my breath catch. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. His thumb gently brushed a stray strand of hair from my cheek, his touch feather-light. Then, slowly, giving me every chance to pull away, he leaned in. The first kiss was hesitant, a question whispered against my lips. Soft, incredibly gentle, a mere brush of warmth. It was an apology, a greeting, a sigh of relief all at once. It lasted only a heartbeat, then he pulled back just a fraction, his eyes searching mine, asking permission, seeking confirmation. My answer was to lean in this time, closing that tiny distance. The second kiss was deeper, sweeter. Still gentle, unhurried, but infused with the warmth flooding back between us. His lips were soft and warm, moving against mine with a reverence that made my heart ache. One of his hands slid up to cradle my jaw, his thumb stroking my cheekbone, while the other arm held me securely around my waist. It was a kiss that spoke volumes without words. It spoke of forgiveness, of understanding, of the deep, abiding affection that underlay everything else. It wasn't fiery passion ignited by the storm, it was the warm glow of embers being carefully tended, the comfort of coming home. There was no urgency, only a profound savoring of the connection being reforged. We kissed slowly, languidly, lost in the quiet intimacy of the moment. The rain continued its steady percussion on the roof, the wipers occasionally squeaking against the glass as the downpour lessened slightly to a heavy, persistent shower. Time seemed to stretch and bend, irrelevant within our little sanctuary. Each kiss was a soft exploration, a reaffirmation of tenderness. He pulled back just enough to brush his lips against my forehead, my temple, the corner of my mouth, before finding my lips again, each touch lighter than a butterfly's wing, yet carrying the weight of everything we'd almost lost. His embrace was everything. Solid, safe, enveloping. It wasn't confining, it was liberating. Held against him, the anxieties, the small resentments, the noise of the outside world simply melted away. I felt cherished, protected, deeply, profoundly loved. The gentle pressure of his lips, the warmth of his hands, the steady rhythm of his breathing, they wove a spell of pure, unadulterated comfort. After a long while, we simply rested, foreheads touching, breathing the same air. His arms were still around me, mine still wrapped around him as much as the space allowed. A deep sense of peace, profound and quiet, settled over us, thicker and more real than the rain misting the windows. I was so scared, he confessed, his voice a husky whisper against my skin. Scared I'd messed things up beyond fixing this time. Scared I'd lost you over something so stupid. You didn't lose me, I whispered back, tracing the line of his collarbone through his shirt with my fingertips. We just lost our way for a minute. Got tangled up in the unimportant stuff. I tilted my head up to look at him again. The worry in his eyes had softened, replaced by a vulnerable hope that mirrored my own feelings. But this, I gestured slightly, encompassing the closeness, the lingering warmth of his kiss on my lips, this is what matters. This is real. He nodded, his eyes suspiciously bright. He pressed another feather-light kiss to my lips, then one to the tip of my nose, making me smile. This is everything, he agreed softly. He shifted slightly, his hand coming up to cup my face. I promise, Clara, I'll try harder. To listen. To be present. To not let the small stuff cloud what we have. I know, I said, leaning into his touch. And I promise to talk to you, not shut down. To remember that we're a team. It felt like making vows, sacred promises whispered in the heart of the storm. We lapsed back into comfortable silence, wrapped in each other, listening to the rain. The fury had passed, it was now a steady, cleansing downpour. Occasionally, the headlights of a passing car would briefly illuminate the interior in a sweeping arc, casting fleeting, distorted shadows before plunging us back into our private gloom. We didn't mind. We were in our own world. He began to talk, his voice a low, soothing rumble under my ear. Not about the argument, but about small things. A funny thing that happened at work, his mom's latest gardening adventure, his thoughts on the book he was reading. It was the ordinary stuff of life, the shared tapestry of our relationship. I listened, interjecting softly, sharing snippets of my own week. The conversation was easy, flowing naturally, the intimacy of our embrace making even the mundane feel significant, cherished. It was the rebuilding of the bridge, plank by familiar plank. As the rain finally began to ease, softening to a gentle patter, the world outside slowly regained definition. The dark shapes of trees solidified against the slightly less oppressive gray sky. The air in the car, thick with shared warmth and emotion, felt charged, yet peaceful. "Looks like it's clearing," Alex murmured, his gaze shifting towards the windshield where the wipers were now easily clearing the glass. The frantic drumming had subsided to a peaceful tapping. I hummed, reluctant to move from the haven of his arms. "Do we have to go?" He chuckled softly, a warm, rich sound that vibrated through me. He pressed his lips gently against my hair. "Eventually. But not quite yet." He tightened his arms around me for a moment. "Just a few more minutes." We savored those minutes. The quiet conversation faded again, replaced by the simple comfort of holding each other. He traced patterns on my back with his fingertips. I played with a button on his shirt. The residual tension from the storm and our earlier discord was gone, replaced by a profound sense of gratitude and connection. The gentle kisses we'd shared lingered on my lips like a sweet secret, a tangible reminder of the tenderness that had flowed back between us. Finally, with a sigh that was part contentment, part resignation, Alex shifted. "Okay," he said softly. "We should probably head back before it gets completely dark. Roads might still be slick." He carefully helped me sit back up in my seat, his hands lingering on my shoulders for a moment, his thumbs brushing my collarbones in a final caress. The loss of his immediate warmth was palpable, but the connection, the understanding, the renewed affection remained, a warm ember glowing brightly inside me. He reached over and gently brushed his knuckles down my cheek. "You okay?" he asked, his eyes searching mine, full of concern and love. I smiled, a real, wide smile that felt like sunshine breaking through after the rain. "More than okay," I said, covering his hand with mine for a moment. "I'm good. Really good." He smiled back, the worry lines vanishing completely, replaced by the familiar crinkles at the corners of his eyes that I loved. "Good." He started the engine, the sound startlingly loud after the long quiet. The headlights cut through the lingering drizzle and the deepening twilight. He put the car in drive and carefully navigated back onto the wet road, the tires hissing softly on the asphalt. As we drove, the silence was companionable now, filled with the shared warmth of reconciliation. The streetlights began to flicker on, casting long, watery reflections on the glistening road. I watched the passing scenery, feeling fundamentally changed. The argument hadn't just been patched over, it had been washed clean by the storm and the profound tenderness that followed. We had navigated the rough weather, both outside and within, and found our way back to each other, stronger for the journey. He reached across the console again, not taking his eyes off the road, and found my hand. He laced his fingers through mine, his thumb rubbing slow, comforting circles on my skin. It was a simple gesture, yet it held the echo of his embrace, the memory of his gentle kisses, the promise of his whispered words. I squeezed his hand back, resting our joined hands on my leg. The storm had passed. The road ahead was wet, reflecting the lights, but clear. And we were driving down it together, hand in hand, the warmth of forgiveness and the quiet strength of rediscovered tenderness filling the space between us, brighter than any headlight cutting through the rain-washed night. The memory of pulling over, the sudden intimacy forced by the weather, the gentle way he held me, the softness of his kisses, it wasn't just a moment. It was a turning point, a sanctuary found in the heart of a downpour, a reminder of the deep, quiet love that was always there, waiting beneath the surface, strong enough to weather any storm. The rain had cleansed the air outside, and in that small car, it had washed our hearts clean too.